Aside from the Stinger and maybe the K900 luxury sedan, which was offered with a V8 engine, Kia really isn't known for building performance vehicles. In fact, the automaker doesn't even have an in-house go-fast division like Mercedes-AMG or even Hyundai's N sub-brand. But this right here, the EV6 GT, shatters the mold. It's actually the most powerful production Kia ever built. It can go from 0 to 60 in just 3.4 seconds. This right here is a performance vehicle through and through, but for several important reasons, you may not actually want one. Giving the EV6 GT a big advantage over the lesser Wind and GT line trims are two potent electric motors. The front dynamo is rated at 160 kilowatts, while the rear one cranks out 270. In Freedom units, that works out to 576 horsepower and 546 pound-feet of torque. So lots of giddy-up. Helping you control all that power, GTs also come with upgraded brakes. There are 14.2-inch rotors at the back, and we have 15-inch discs up front that are squeezed by 4-piston calipers that, as you can see, have been treated to a lovely neon green paint job. GT models also feature adjustable dampers, upgraded front suspension components, and an electronically controlled limited-slip rear differential. Aside from those technical upgrades, a few visual changes help set the EV6 GT apart from its siblings. The front and rear ends have been tweaked, there's a special rear spoiler, and the vehicle rolls on those lovely 21-inch wheels that in this case are fitted with winter tires because it's still cold and nasty here in Detroit, despite the sun being out today. Alrighty, so according to the owner's manual, these lug nuts should be torqued to between 79 and 94 pounds a twist. So I'll get this wheel reinstalled and then we'll continue the review. Just as soon as I find those lug nuts, I don't know where I put them. You probably don't need all 5 of them, right? 3 is fine? 2 in a pinch? Where are they though? Might have to use tape. Just like the closely related Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Genesis GV60, this EV6 features a 77.4 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. A DC fast-charging champion, it should top out at around 235 kilowatts, a stellar performance. In fact, the pack can go from a 10% state of charge to 80% in just 18 minutes. But as with everything in life, there are trade-offs. And for the EV6 GT, a big one is range. Having beefy tires and all that power means this vehicle can only go an EPA-estimated 206 miles on a charge. In comparison, the all-wheel drive GT line version is rated at 252 miles, and the all-wheel drive Wind at 282. So here you're giving up potentially 76 miles of range, which is a lot. Making this trade-off even more questionable, those lesser EV6s are already fantastic performers with 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. Matching the exterior, there are of course a few minor upgrades inside this vehicle. We have neon green stitching on the steering wheel as well as a bright green GT Performance button. Now there's also supposedly a special striped motif on the dashboard and center armrest. I've got to say it doesn't really look any different from what you get in other Kia EV6s. But the biggest upgrades to the GT model are these front seats. They are manually adjustable and very generously bolstered. These things fit me perfectly and hold me very snug in corners, although I will say, if you are larger than me, you probably won't like these seats because they are a bit restrictive up here in the torso area. This car's straight line performance is bonkers. You just roll on the accelerator at any time, any place, and it just leaps forward. I mean, it's all that electric torque that hits instantly. Now, this car is not quite take your breath away, scramble your organs quick, but let me tell you, the EV6 GT has serious oomph. And Kia, of course, is proud to say that this little electric vehicle can actually out-accelerate a Ferrari Roma or even a Lamborghini Huracan Evo Spider rear-wheel drive. But, you know, it's also quicker than a game of correspondence chess or one of those scooters at your local grocery store. The steering is crisper, firmer, and more direct than what you get in other EV6s, and this is because the ratio is actually quicker and because of those unique front suspension components I mentioned a little bit earlier. Now, of course, more road feel would always be nice, and this setup isn't particularly communicative, but it still does drive very well, and I bet it would be even better if this car had summer tires instead of the winter rubber we're on right now. When it comes to corners, this vehicle does feel very heavy, and that's because it is. Before passengers or cargo are on board, it weighs about 4,800 pounds, which means it's not particularly eager to dive into turns or other twisty roads, but that's fine. 4,800 pounds is a lot, but it's par for the EV course. Next up, let's talk about the ride. It's always firm, but never brutal in this Kia. The chassis still does a very nice job filtering out roadway harshness, that sort of grittiness that comes up from the pavement. You don't feel a lot of that in this vehicle. Now, one thing I will mention is that I don't notice much of a difference with the adjustable dampers as I cycle through the different driving modes. I can't really tell much of a change putting it in the different settings. As I mentioned earlier, there's a GT button here on the steering wheel, and that gives you instant access to a couple different settings. There's a pre-canned GT mode as well as a sort of personal mode that allows you to go in and make adjustments to a whole bunch of different vehicle parameters. Opposite this button, there's a more traditional drive mode selector that allows you to cycle through the Eco, Normal, and Sport modes. And for typical use, I've just been using the Normal mode, which still gives you very good performance and allows this vehicle to drive quite well. If you really want to have some fun, the EV6 GT also offers a dedicated drift mode, which basically sends all the power to that back motor so you can smoke the tires and get sideways if you want. Now, to access that, you've got to do a couple things. First, you put it in GT mode, then you've got to turn traction control off, then you pull each of the paddles and hold them back for about 3 seconds, then it pops up with drift mode in the instrument cluster, and then you can go out and have some fun. Responsibly, of course. Or at least don't get caught. To recap, the 2023 Kia EV6 GT has subtly aggressive styling that I think looks great. This vehicle's acceleration is amazing, 0 to 60 in just 3.4 seconds. The interior is as lovely as ever, and the driving dynamics are plenty engaging. As for downsides, a little bit more separation between lesser all-wheel drive EV6s would be nice. The range could certainly be better, and this Kia is not cheap. Altogether, our tester checks out for just shy of $63,000 including delivery fees, and that's about $9 grand more than an all-wheel drive EV6 Wind. Now, I love the GT's strong performance and its sporty demeanor, but unfortunately, I don't think this vehicle is necessarily worth the trade-offs, the increased price and reduced range. Now, that's not to say the EV6 GT is not a phenomenal electric vehicle, because it is, and it might be exactly what you are looking for, but the standard all-wheel drive EV6s are already such excellent vehicles, the GT here kind of has a hard time moving the needle. Next up, watch my full review of the Kia EV6 GT line, not to be confused with the GT parked behind me. In this video, I cover some of the features and amenities that make the EV6 one of the best electric vehicles you can buy today.